Welcome back to Insights with PT. Picking up with where we left off, let's continue with this special edition of This Is My Story with Pastor Tola.
Um, that was a tough one, for me. So I said, okay, so that means that my life has to be an open book. Because if I'm using my life's message, then there will be no secrets, there will be no gray area. Up to today, the best examples I've given in this church are examples of my life, my wife, my family, and all, because that was part of what God told me. And He told me again many years later to reaffirm what He told me earlier. I said, go back and use your life story. This is what this is what will compel people to believe you. Just tell them about your life. So if you are wondering why am I even doing this also, it's the same thing. I'm telling my life story so that people that hear also can take inspiration from it and they can be challenged, with this story. So the church started and we started seeing the hand of God, the grace of God. By the time this church was 3 years old, we had moved into the first half of the sanctuary. At that time, up till now, we were the first church outside of Nigeria, of that denomination that will buy land, that will build, scratch. Today, everybody is doing that, and we thank God for using us. But there's something I need to bring out there, is that in the course of starting the church and even the building, we asked for help. Nobody gave us help. There was no $1, either from Nigeria or from anywhere, or from the system denomination that said, this is how much we are using for you to set up the church. There was nothing. But we kept on building. We kept on building. We kept on building. When we wanted to start this sanctuary, I wrote a letter saying, can we be given permission not to give a percentage of our income? If you've worked in systems, organizations have different rules. So part of the rules of the one that I was in then was that you give a percentage of your income and send it to a common purse. Do you understand? That can we be excused from that maybe for a year or so that we can gather some money for it? I got a letter saying no. If God has asked you to build, then God will provide for you. There was no help. And I'm saying this for those who talk without knowing what we are talking about. It's for you to know. I still have the letter, and I know the person that signed it. I just don't want to mention the name. Do you understand? So there was no help for us. So came back to the church. That was all I needed. I needed that fire. That fire of no was all I needed. And we started pushing it. And gradually, one by one, how the church, we were about 60-something people when we started with children contributing money. When we finished the building on the 3rd anniversary of the church, we were about 200 people. How did we contribute? Maybe adults, 120 or 30. How we were able to contribute to be able to build this sanctuary with 50% equity, I don't know till today. Only God knows. There were people giving us money from their paycheck. And I mean paycheck. Not that they took out of it. When you count the money, it came with cents. So you know this is somebody's paycheck. So when somebody gives you $1,210.65, people don't give like that. If people are going to give, they are going to give in round figures. It's either they give 1,000, they give 1,200, or you give 500, or they give 100, or give 20, or they give 10. But not give something plus 65 cents. So I knew that these people, they were giving their salaries. And that thing touched me because the kind of prayers I was praying, God, please, you must honor your word concerning these givers. There was a young lady who used to be in our church then. She sold her car. She was in college. And she sold her car and brought the car. By the way, you might be wondering, what did I do? I sold my car. I was the first one that sold my car in this church to give to the building fund. And we had no car, me and my wife. The only car we had, I sold it. So, and when she told me she sold her car, my head was spinning. I said, you did what? Maybe she was like 22 at that time. I said, you sold your car? My God, no. I said, I'm not taking this money. She said, no, Pastor, what do you mean you're not taking? Are you not the one urging us to? Don't you believe in that God will reward us and da. In my head, I was saying, I could imagine an African woman, the mother of that child, say, Pastor, you took my child's money, and she sold her car, and you took it. I said, no. The girl said, no way. Eventually we took the money. Eventually, I saw the girl in a span of 20 years. How God multiplied her. She was 22 or 22 something when she came to this church. She got married. She had children in this church. I kept on remembering the car she sold. I'm talking about somebody who is over 50 now. I can remember like yesterday how she gave me the money for the car. Maybe the money was like 1,000 something or whatever. But that money was like blood money. I said, what? So God used a lot of people like that, such that by the time we dedicated this building, I just knew that God was in it. God was in it. Some years down the line, we paid off the loan, paid off the mortgage. In fact, we paid off the mortgage in the midst of the greatest crash in America's economy in 2009. I can never forget. Do you understand? And we paid off that mortgage. And I began to see the hand of God. One of the things that God did in seeing his hand was when we wanted to buy the land on the other side of our church. This was 102 or 103 acres of land. And we spoke to the owners. And the owners told us how much. And we agreed. And we signed a contract. But then I couldn't sleep. I said, why? What is happening? There was no peace. So I went back to God. I said, God, what is the problem? And God said to me, you could have gotten that land far cheaper than you paid for it. I said, what? So I called the board of trustee meeting. We were in Pennsylvania on a retreat. It was a workers' prayer retreat. So I called the trustees and they all sat down. I said, excuse me, that land that we signed, the contract, I believe we paid too much for it. And God will want us to go back and renegotiate. And they looked at me like, are you kidding? Pastor, nobody does that. In America, you signed the contract. I said, please, this is God. Please. I'm saying this. I don't intimidate people with God. And I don't say every time that this is what God says. But I'm telling you, I know if God says something to me and I tell you this is God, you better listen. That one, I can fight anybody on it. Because I know I will be right. Because God is there. I said, this is God, though. I said, I don't know what you're going to tell the man. I said, but this contract, we must review it. So I told our accountant then, I said, call the man. He called the man. The man asked him, how much do you want to pay? He came back to me and said, Pastor, you can't believe this. I said, I can believe anything. God told me this. So please don't tell me you can't believe. No. I already believed when God told me. You are the ones that cannot believe. He said, the man is saying, how much do you want to pay? I must have maybe like $300,000 or $500,000 I took off. Till today, I still believe that I should have taken off more. I'm telling you. And you will know why. So the guy went back to him. And the man said, deal. They will sell it less that amount. I said, now tell them this is another one. We don't even have money. They will finance it for us. He said, the man came back, said, deal. If you can give them a bulk money, I think they asked for 300,000. Then spread the rest, not more than 7 years. We'll finance it for you. I think we paid the rest in like 5 years. You know. So he said, at that point, all the trustees, they had to listen because it's like, don't try this man, no. You see, this that is working, we don't. So I now took the phone. I called the man. The man was 95 years old at that time. So I said, sir, thank you for accepting to work with us on the price, I said, no problem, I said, can you please tell me, why did you agree on $500,000 less than what we assigned for? I wanted to know why. What was his own motivation? He said to me, our parents bought that land over 100 years ago. And when they were dying, they wrote it on their will that don't sell this land, but if you must sell, you must sell to a church.
Wow.
Bingo. Over 100 years, God had already sorted this church out. When I was not in play, when my father was not in play, when nobody, over 100 years, written, signed, and sealed. I said, really? That was when I said, my God, I should have halved this thing to 50%. Because they had developers offering them more money. They said, our parents said, and this is the will. We must sell to a church. From Africa to here. And God had already gone ahead of you 100 years earlier. Excuse me. I don't know why Christians walk in fear. If God can plan 100 years in advance, can you imagine? I know how He has planned in advance concerning you. This is what I say to people. When He says, I know the thoughts I have towards you. They are thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you a hope and an expected end. When I came to this church and I told this church what happened, this place exploded. I mean, exploded. Now we own the land. Now it's fully paid for. And we are still doing this work.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. A huge thank you to Pastor Tola for sharing such powerful and personal stories with us. Stay tuned every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time as we dive into further chapters of his story. Thank you.